Welcome to the High School Basketball Coaching Podcast. My name is Josh Morse. I'm here with Milton Academy coach Lamar Reddicks. Welcome.
Thanks for having me, Josh.
You are coming off of a championship season. After 15 years, you're entering your 16th year as both coach and athletic director. Mm-hmm. Tell us about the experience of being a championship caliber team and what it took to get there.
Well, I tell people all the time, one of the first things I did when we got back from our championship game was I texted all the players who had played for me in the past and told them that there's no way we win this championship without their contributions before. Those guys paved the way for us to be the team that we were this past year, and I really believe that. I don't just say that. They're a hallmark of what our program is, and so they've left a solid foundation. They've paved the road, and these guys were lucky enough to be able to finish it.
And there are a lot of accolades coming out of that.
There were.
So you had Coach of the Year honors, a couple Coach of the Year honors.
I've said this to people before. I've never not won the Coach of the Year without having the Player of the Year. So I've been lucky to have some really, really good players during my time at Milton.
So in that championship game, you were going up against a lot of Division I players.
Oh, yeah.
AJ specifically.
Yeah.
I mean,
he's not a Division I player. He's a pro. We played Brewster Academy early in the year, and we lost by 7. And that was the day that I knew that we could beat St. Sebastian's. So we just needed to put it all together, and we had played St. Sebastian's 10 days before we played them in the championship. And as you can imagine, it's never easy to beat a team twice, especially in that short period of time, too. And so the game was a back-and-forth game, and I told some people all the time, I said, it was going to be a game of runs, and we are explosive. We can go on 9, 10-0 runs, and so are they. And so it was almost like going to be the team with the ball last. And the way that it all shook out was that they had the ball last. We made a defensive play, which no one probably talked about defensively between the two. All the talent that's on that court, it's a lot of offensive talent. And the biggest play was a steal by Austin Hunt that went in for an and-one and really changed the game for the most part there.
Tell us about end of game when you're getting down to the last few seconds. Bring us into the timeout situation at the end.
We pretty much talked about all the things we talked about all year long, just really playing together, screening for each other, and we kept it pretty simple this year, and it's pretty easy to do that when you have really talented players. But we just kind of focused on the things that we talked about before, and so we always look for the right team shot, and that varies from game to game who that team shot is for, and so and our guys bought into that, and I think it's a tribute to them because during that. Our run pretty much in the playoffs, Jack Graham went off. The game before he had 42 points, and our first game he had 20-something points, and I think he had 19 or 20-something points in the championship.
Right.
But if you ask me, this is a true story. I do not know who our leading scorer was this year. I can guess probably, but I mean, that's just how he played this year, and. Every day was a different guy that rose to the occasion and was our leading scorer, and that's great that I had that kind of firepower that we just had different guys that could show up and be, but also in different games, so CJ Cox had to take Trevor Mullins, that's a tough matchup. So he's probably not going to go score a whole bunch of points because he's got to stop one of the better players in New England. Austin Hunt was covering AJ DeBantis, who is a pro, legit pro, and so he's not going to go for 30 in that game. So guys in every game we have guys playing different roles, and some games we need guys to do more rebounding, we need them to play more defense. Some games, a guy has it going pretty good, and like Jack Graham had it going pretty good in the game before, and we just found the basketball found him. And we made sure it found him. So for us, we just kept it simple, and we just stuck to what we've been doing all year long, and that was really important for us.
So that all starts back in preseason.
Absolutely.
Your comfort level in that championship game was after all those reps, all those experiences, maybe even a loss to Brewster, which teaches you something.
Totally.
Talk to us about how you prepare for the season. And in your case, in this particular season, a little bit different. You were the top-ranked team coming in. So you had that expectation all year long.
Absolutely.
How do you start that process? What do you say on the first day to your team?
Gosh, I'll take it back a year before when we weren't ranked and we weren't on that list. And so everybody that was on there, we were gunning for. And that's true. That's 100% true. It was the first thing I posted in our locker room, and every team that we were playing that was on that list, we were coming for you. And that was how we treated every single one of my guys. None of them had a scholarship offer. We were the underdogs. And so we took that to heart. And then so we made it to the semifinals the year before. And so I think that process really all started the year before. Fast forward to this year, we get the number one ranking to start the year off. And that's very different, right? And I would assume that we'd probably have the same thing this year too. And what I told our guys, it's great to be preseason number one. You want to finish number one, and that was our big goal. And we talked about that every single day. Great, this is awesome. You deserve it, actually. But that means nothing unless you finish number one. And so we were able to do that.
What would you describe the culture of your team to be, and how do you develop that culture?
Yeah. You know, flash back a few years ago, COVID happened, right? And I thought our culture was going to be the biggest thing that took a hit during that time. That was my biggest worry. Turns out I bring in these 5 amazing kids that all have something to prove, and they bought into everything that I was preaching to them. And I give them the credit because really it's a pretty special group in that sense. And do we have some growing pains? 100%. Every team has those things. But they bought in, and they knew at the end of the day it was all going to benefit them. And so now you look at Jack Graham is at University of Richmond. Our point guard, Gavin Carter, who had been on the team before, is now at Colorado College and going to play there this year. And then my 4 returning studs that I have on my team, C.J. Cox, C.J. Happy, Austin Hunt, and Nick Petronia, who was hurt most of the year. So easily one of the top talented kids in New England doesn't play. We win championship. But those guys are highly motivated kids. When we play pickup, the pickup games are amazing. They all push each other in certain ways in terms of getting in the gym on their own, in the morning, during free periods, throughout the course of the day, and to the point where this year my son was on the team, which is another special moment for me this year, is I told CJ Happy, I said, anytime that you go into the gym, I want you to call my son and take him with you. And one day I happened to be in my office. He just comes down to the gym. I said, hey, where's my son? He goes, oh, I thought you were just saying when I was doing. No, I said, anytime you come, or you're in the gym right now, right? Anytime you come to the gym, you call my son and you bring him with you. And that was for my son to see what it took to be a really good basketball player. It's not just, between the hours of our practice. It was, on Sundays, guys came in and got extra reps or went up to the weight room and got a lift in. Guys would come in the morning. Guys would come after school. So he saw what it took for all these guys to get to where they got to. And like I said, 3 years ago, not a person in New England knew who these kids were. And if you go look at, not that I feed into that stuff, but the New England Recruiting Report has them 8, 9, 10, and 11. Ranked all 4 of them right together, which is great because that's how good they all are, and they mean that much to me. I don't think there's a big separation who's the most talented who means more. They're all just so good, and they're just great. They're better kids too. I enjoy being around them. I've enjoyed watching their growth and development, and what they're leaving with my younger kids is another hopefully successful group of guys coming up.
How do you weed out the players that you're looking for from maybe even a more talented player.
Sometimes they weed themselves out too, by the way. No, seriously. I think, kids look at our current roster and they're like, well, where am I going to get my shots up? And once you start thinking that way, this may not be the right fit for you. And that's fine. I want kids who are hungry. I want kids who want to get better. I want kids who are coachable and want to be coached. And I think of our coaching styles pretty similar. Like I have zero problems coaching you hard in between the lines. But I also love you just as hard outside the lines too. And so, and I think our kids realize that they're going to get both. They're going to get pushed. And I say that in the recruiting process. If you aren't going to be okay with me coaching you, then you should find another school. I've played in college. I've coached in college. I know what it takes to play at that next level. And I'm going to get you where you need to be.
So many coaches had prior assistant coaching jobs. They had other jobs. Mm-hmm. You were at Harvard. You were at BU. Mm-hmm. What did those experiences teach you, and how did they help you at Milton Academy in your current role?
Gosh, I think I pick up something from everybody. I really do. And, I'll start with my high school coach. My high school coach was tough. I don't think you can do 90% of the things that he did when he was coaching now, and very disciplined, defensive minded. My college coach, the way that he ran his program is how I try to run my program now. And then when I was at Harvard, I learned really how to be a professional. From Frank Sullivan, who was the coach there at the time. And here at BU, same thing. I learned a lot with that coaching staff, and that really has helped me become the coach that I am now. And I still, like I said, I steal from every single. I've stolen from you. You don't even know that I've stolen from you, but I still, as a coach, feel like there's so much for me to learn, and new stuff that's out there, or tweaks that I can do to a current drill that we already do because I've seen someone else do something similar. So I continue to grow as a coach, and I'll know when it's time for me to stop being a coach when I don't want to grow anymore.
Talk to me about how you manage your players outside of the court, and what leadership and guidance do you give them? Obviously, a lot of self-motivation, clearly, but how do you manage through that?
I am in constant conversations with them. I know a little bit about their whole entire life. I guide them through in and out of so many different things, and I think that's what makes our relationship really special, is that there is a bond that I have with my players. Like this year we played in the Boston Garden, and we invited a lot of our alums who would come back, and that was like the most special day that I've had in a long time, because I got to have like my former guys watch this current group of guys who are awesome, and those guys being around and my guys being around, and it was just a phenomenal day. Like it really, really was. And like to see my former players look at my son, who was like literally, some of them like remember when he was like literally in a carriage, and the relationships that I have with my players, and I keep that going on. I reach out to every single one of my former players at least once, if not more than once, throughout the course of the year. My current players, far more, obviously. If they play another sport or they have another interest, I try to support them in that too. It's not just this coach and player relationship. It's much deeper than that.
In coaching your son, that's a very different dynamic. I've seen many coaches that have coached their son, and that's a special opportunity, clearly.
Yes.
But it presents its level of challenges as
well.
No
doubt about it.
How do you manage through that situation? And tell me about that relationship that you have.
So I got to tell, I'll share this first story, is that I look at my son as so much as just one of the guys that we won the championship this year, and we're in the locker room celebrating, and I'm getting changed for us to get back onto the bus, and he happened to be in the same locker room stall that I was, and I was like, holy cow, you're my son, and we just did something that's pretty special, right? Like, and we had this big hug and embrace, and that was like honestly a super special moment that we will always have and always share. But I've coached him so much and so long that it's very natural for him to be around. It's been really good coaching him and really watching his development over the years. And I would probably tell you that he probably gets screwed more often than not. We had 11 guys this year, so if there was a guy that needed to be the shorthanded guy in the rotation, it was him. He gets screwed probably more often than not. But I tell you what, one thing that we do, and it's our rule, is when we get into the car, we don't talk about basketball. So, it doesn't matter if we're just going down the street or if we are in Connecticut. Once we get in the car, we shut it off and we talk about anything else other than that. And that's really hard to me because I have that one, like, you should have had that rebound. Like, there's that one little coaching point I want to point out, but I don't. And that works for us. And so I think we have a pretty special relationship when it comes to that.
Talk to me about how you integrate your assistant coaches and perhaps some of the roles that you give them in terms of helping your entire program.
So I remember being an assistant coach and feeling like I didn't have enough to do or say, and that's hard sometimes to be in a 2-hour practice and feel like you didn't say a word, you didn't impact anything that was going on. And so I'm very different with my assistant coaches. I give one who's in charge of our offense, one's in charge of our defense. They're almost like offense and defense coordinators. That also allows them to have their own buy-in, which is really, I think, really important too. And then in every practice, they get 15 to 20 minutes that's theirs. And I don't tell them what to do. Now, every once in a while, I'm like, hey, we need to work on screen and roll defense. Like, it's been terrible. Like, I might say that. But 90% of the time, you have 20 minutes today. What do you think we need to work on? Let's work on that. On Mondays, we only do skill development. We don't do any 5-on-5, and my 2 assistant coaches run those days. So this go like probably about 15, 20-minute blocks, rotate, ball handling, shooting, attack the bat, all that type of stuff. That is actually the most important day of the year, every Monday, because it allows me to pull Josh aside. Hey, you've had a couple of crappy games. What's up, man? Everything good? Or you've been awesome. Hey, keep it up. Keep attacking. Keep getting to the basket. No one can stop you. Like, whatever the case may be. I can't do that when I'm coaching the whole team. So those Monday practices, for me, are really special because it allows me to grab a kid, have an individual conversation with him that I really wouldn't be able to do when I'm running the whole team. And so I've really gotten to enjoy those practices, and those practices are hard. And, like I said, the team may not really hear my voice on those days. And if they do, that means they're not working hard and it's not good. But for the most part, it's a really great day for us. So we start off with, like, footwork and agility and all types of ball handling and, like I said, attacking the glass and shooting drills and no 5-on-5 stuff. We might be crappy with our baseline out of bounds plays. We're still not going to do it on those days because I feel like I owe it to our guys to help them get better as basketball players. And so we dedicate those Mondays to getting better as a basketball player. And it's a lift day, and it's a hard lift day. And so it's by far the toughest day of the week. But if you ask any one of those guys, they love it. They love that day of the week.
But they're also getting your honest feedback,
yes,
knowing where they stand,
absolutely,
what they have to work on.
Absolutely.
There's that connection that you're establishing.
Absolutely.
During the season, you'll have a little bit more time than, say, an MIAA school to prepare for the season.
Correct.
What's the beginning of the season look like versus the middle of the season versus the end of the season?
Yeah. This year will be different because we returned so many guys. But the following year, it might be really different. Where we're starting from this year, we're so much more advanced than most of my teams are. And that's where we were last year. We were just so far in advance. And so it allowed us to work on things that we never get to at some point in time. Like, all right, 1-3-1, going over a 1-3-1 on offense if a team was to play that against us. And we have good enough guys that I could just say, hey, let's us run it. I would do this. Like we in some games, I'd throw things at them in the middle of a game that we've never worked on, we've never talked about. But they're such good, smart basketball players, they can do it. So we would do that throughout the course of the year. We'd work on things that like I knew we'd see later on down the year, and it's a fun group to be able to do that stuff with. I'm not sure I can do that in another year. While it's fun and enjoyable right now, it scares me to death to think down the line that we won't be able to do all the type of stuff. But
and with that group, the motivation factor certainly coming off of a championship year. The next year is different motivator.
I want to play tough teams. I want to play good teams. I want to play against the best because that's where I'll learn the most about us as a team. And so we don't shy away from playing against good competition. We want to play against as many good teams as we possibly can because we learn so much. This one point in time in the year, we're like, hey, we are super deep. And then it was like one game was like, holy cow, are we going to get through this 32 minutes? Like I'm not sure if my poor backup point guard is now playing 32 minutes where like 3 games ago he didn't play 3 minutes, But, the depth was able to allow us to be able to survive a little bit of that. But, I look at our team and I say that we'll start at a much advanced place this year because it's not like an install. Mm-hmm. There's going to be like 2 or 3 guys that won't know what they're doing, and they'll have to figure it out. And I'm not worried about them. And they will figure it out. They have no choice, so they'll figure it out. Where the following year will be 5, 6, 7 guys that will need to figure it out. So we'll have to slowly install stuff. You talked about, for us, a motivation going into a year where we just won a championship. Well, I just told you the kid, Nick Petronio, was hurt. If you ask him, I don't think he believes he won a championship. So I think he's going to be super motivated to win a championship. I've already I can probably even show it to you, a text message that's going to go out September 1 that the ride is over, the new season's here, and whatever we did last year doesn't matter. But it doesn't though. It really doesn't matter anymore. And every accolade we're gonna have, we'll talk about it and then we'll rip it up and throw it away because it's over. And it's now time to move on to the next season. And I think for a lot of our guys, winning back-to-back championships would be pretty special. And I think our guys are motivated to do that.
So as you face teams that you continually face year after year that are also bringing back,
absolutely.
What are some of the tweaks that you might make in your system to avoid some of the game planning that may go on?
Can't game plan against us because we're gonna have 4 talented players on the court 90% of the game, and so. And I think even whoever that 5th guy is going to be pretty good too. Like there's not going to be a scrub, so you're going to have to really play us pretty much straight up. And there's very few game planning. You're going to play zone against us. We have great shooters. You're going to play man against us. We will execute our offense. We get in transition. Our defense is usually pretty good, and so I think it's really hard to game plan against us. And that's what the style of play that we want to have that you can't go and game plan against us. Now you could years ago when we had 1 or 2 stars on the team, but we have very talented players right now.
So regardless of your makeup.
Mm-hmm.
Your philosophy around your starting 5 versus your subs, do you have a set methodology around that, or are you sort of game planning as the game goes on, subbing to your feel or subbing to a plan or a combination of both?
Wow.
And then how do you intertwine the players that you want to get a little bit more experience in that process?
Yeah, well that's what this year will be. So I sub almost all the time at the 12-minute mark. So someone's coming out of the game at the 12-minute mark because we just need to get rotations going and want some fresh bodies in there. So it's usually the same person, but foul trouble, things like that change, how that goes. And but we'll start getting subs in. And you're right. My biggest thing is, do I start a 5th senior with this group and just, hey, these are our 5 seniors, or do I start a younger kid with this group and try to help build that person along for the ride a little bit here until it will be this huge balancing act between us trying to win now, but also build toward the future. And we'll do that somehow, some way. And probably to the dismay of my 4 studs that want to probably play all 32 minutes, is that I need to find ways to, build in these younger guys. But the younger guys are hungry and they want to play too, and they want to prove to them. They want to prove to this older group that they belong. So it's an interesting balance that I have. That I have these 5 younger kids that are hungry, who want something, want to prove something to these older guys. And then these older guys who, I'm telling you, we could go play today and they would be fine. Like they've been around, they've seen it all, they've been through it all, and they're ready for anything that's thrown at them.
So as an athletic director too, so you wear multiple hats.
Yeah.
You get to see other practices. You get to see other coaches. You're talking with.
I steal all the time.
You're just stealing all the time.
People don't know it. Like I'll be at a soccer, practice, and I watch this drill, and I'm just like, awesome, I'm taking that. And I tell it to my coaches. We'll have our coaches meeting next week, and I'll tell them all the time. I was like, when you'll see me at practices, I'm there just to, show support. I'm there just to watch. I'm there to steal your drills too. Like I think that's the big thing about coaching, as you know. Like it's this big fraternity, and we're constantly stealing from each other. And even if it's just one little small thing, that's a huge thing to me. Like, if it's going to make us that much better, then I'm going to take that in. And, during COVID, what I did was I did a whole bunch of Zooms with a bunch of coaches throughout the country. And the most interesting one was Grinnell. I've known that coach for a long time. We're good friends. I couldn't wait to have this Zoom with him. And his was the longest one that I had. I've taken nothing from that he's done and implemented to what we do. But it was by far the best one that I had, because he does everything opposite that I do in thought process, and it was just amazing to me. Like when I talk to somebody else, everyone runs a high ball screen here and does this. There's a lot of similarities. Everything he does is different, and so I had so many why. Or so why do you do that? And why do you do that? And so you're okay with the other team shooting 68% from the field? I'm having hot flashes now thinking about that. And it's just a different philosophy and just a different way of playing. And I thought it was awesome.
You speak at the all academic camp.
Yep.
I'm giving them a plug here.
No doubt.
What do you tell players in that situation? What is the advice that you generally give?
This has become harder and harder for young men and women to be able to play at the next level. Or really talk about how do you make yourself different from the kid sitting next to you, the kid sitting behind you, the kid sitting in front of you. I go back when I played, and this is a long time ago, but it was important for me to feel like when I walked off the court, everyone should have been like, man, he just kicked our ass. And I don't think kids think that way or play that way. So that's the goal, is to try to get kids to think a little bit more that way. Like, what is going to separate you from the other kids in the room?
For those that are trying to make that next leap, whether that's JV coach, high school coach to varsity coach, or you're at the college level, what would you say to those trying to get to the next level?
And I think you got to coach. And so, a lot of times when coaches want to come coach with me, I make them coach the freshman team to start by themselves, because they don't have anyone they have to make all the decisions, who's playing time, all the stuff. And it just allows them to be able to learn more. And a couple of the guys have come back and said to me, and they're coaches now, NEPSAC coaches actually, and they've said to me they value that freshman year experience where they had to do it by themselves, and they had to make decisions, and they had to be in situations by themselves and have to figure things out. And so I think cutting your teeth and growing as a coach, and not just thinking that, hey, I belong at a certain level. You need to grow to that level, I think, is important.
Man or zone?
Man, I probably have played. I could probably count on my hand the possession of zones we've played.
Bird or Magic?
Oh, Bird. I'm a Boston fan.
Dana Barros or Travis Best?
I know Dana Barros a little bit better, so that's why I'm going to go with Dana.
Lamar, you're amazing.
Yeah.
I appreciate it very much.
Oh, no, this was great.